Ori, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Freilich Hanukkah. Yeah. So that's somebody trying to get in. Okay. Shalom Aleichem Yol. Somehow he's muted. I don't know. Okay, so it's our last chance. Zos Hanukkah, right? It's this is Hanukkah. It's supposed to be up behind this, so to know that. Okay, no more Neris, no more. But Lamaisa, this is Hanukkah, so it's still the time of Kedusha, the time of Torah Shabbat Peh. Hanukkah is all about Torah Shabbat Peh. So that's obviously a shiur on its own right to understand what that means, but let's actually just, I'll tell you a fascinating thing that I saw. I just spoke out in the call that Rav Zolti, the former chief rabbi of Yerushalayim, in his sefer Mishnah Yavitz, and also one of the incredible Lemdish Sorim. So he speaks out there that according to the Rishonim, that the Ikar Hadlaka of the Neros is Zecher of the Neros Shabbat, and therefore they made it a lot of the same dinim as the Neros in the Beis Hamikdash. So according to those Rishonim, when they somebody trying to get in, then they even though the Masakin the Yom Tov of Hanukkah, as soon as the Nes happened, the Neros, but to light Neros, as long as there were Neros being lit in the Beis Hamikdash, Hanukkah for everybody else was without Neros. Because the whole point of it is to be Zecher the Neros in the Beis Hamikdash. If there are Neros in the Beis Hamikdash, you don't need a Zecher. It's going on. It's happening in the Beis Hamikdash. So even though there was Halal Ba'adah and you say Al Nisim and everything, but still you would not actually light Neros on Hanukkah until they had instituted that at the time of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, where there was an end of the Halakas Neros of the Beis Hamikdash. Then, at that point, much later in time, it was hundreds of years later, that they instituted the Halakas Neros on Hanukkah. So just imagine Hanukkah was without Halakas Neros. You go through 8 days of Hanukkah without Neros, without lighting Neros, unless you go to the Beis Hamikdash. So right now, the last day of Hanukkah, we have a chance to have Hanukkah like they had it during the Beis Hamikdash. We still have Hanukkah, no Neros to come, but it's Hanukkah. It's just a different thought. Another thought. Okay, we'll start with Reish Mem Daled Sif Aleph. Shulchan Aruch says, Posik Adam means you can make a Tanai, Perish Masna, Ima Akum, Ala Malacha, Bekotzitz Damim, Va'akum Osa La'atzmo. So you're allowed to be Posik Damim. You make basically a Kablan for going to do a certain Malacha, and you set a certain price. Abba Bishu Osa B'Shabbos Mutter. So it's fine. You don't care when he does it, as long as he gets it done. So if he does it on Shabbos, it's convenient for him. It's considered a daita de nafshe, then it's mutter. Medvar Mamorim Bitsina, Shein Makiran, Akol, Shazu, Hamalacha, Nasis, Shabbos Israeli. It's only if it's done Bitsina. Alim Haisi Yaduam for Semes. Aser. If it was Yaduam before some, that's Aser. Sharoa Sa'akum Oisak En Yodea Shakatzatz, Omer Shaploni Sakar Akum, Las Malacha B'Shabbos. So the first time we saw this idea of Dharma before some, if you remember, was in the sugya of Osa Kever, the Yisrael, and he did it in a place where everybody knows what it is and where and who it is. So the Rambam's shita over there was in Shin Chaf Hey Sif Daled, that the Isser is because it's a davar before some, and therefore it had a bigger chumrah. It was more chumrah over there that we said it's Asr L'Olam. Not just at Tomotzi Shabbos. It was usher for the person that it's made for, the olam, which, there's not too many chances to use the one it's made for if the guy is about to be buried, right? So the Olam is not too long, but for everybody else, it's going to be mutter after B'chadei Shiyasu. We do see a concept over there of that it's Asur Olam when it's before sun. So similar to that, we see this halacha over here that it's Anlacham for Semes, and it's Yedua that the Akam did it. So people don't, they know he's doing it, but they don't know that he was Kotzet. So it looks like it was done with Schiris. Omer Shaplanis Sachar Akam Nasbo Lachem Shabbos. Fikag a Posuk in Akam, Livnos or Chatzero or Koslo or Liktzor Lo Sadeu, Im Haisa Malacha Medina or Sachatchum, also Lo Maniach Lasas Malacha Shabbos and Ne'aroa, She'enim Yodim Shapasak. So here, this sugya and this halacha in Shulchan Aruch is machadish to us that the din of mechuber always has a din of mefursam. Mechuber be'etzem is considered davar mefursam. As long as it's in the city, then it's not chutz tchum, where if it's chutz tchum and there's no Yisrael in there and nobody sees it going on, so that could be a different story. And we'll see more about that as we go along. But be'etzem, we always considered mechuber, which would be binyan and any avodas karka, and we'll see later on Sif Beis, anything that's even for avodas karka, there are machmer things that are for the sake of putting it into the karka, like the stones that you're chiseling, that you're preparing for the binyan. Those are all of a din of davar on before sun. And the Ramah ends off ba'afilu im dar bein akum yashlachus la'orchim aboim sham alovnei beisos yachshaду also. Even if you're not around any other Jews at all, but you do have a bnei bais, or you have people to come visit sometimes, so we're kosher for those orchim. If it was outside the tchum and there is no other city around it, then it's mutter. Okay, we'll skip that part now. It's different din. Okay, now so we'll get into this a little bit here now. That here we see that that even kablanas, because we're not talking about he really did do schiris, it's only maris ayin of schiris. If it was real schiris, that's mamish asur mikar din. So talking over here about maris ayin of schiris, but it really was kablanas. It was really done mitzad the way you hired him. You did it beheter. You did it the proper way. It can't be done by davar mechuber before some davar that's mechuber. So the Nosa Kalim say over here, the Achronim say that Shulchan Aruch is going better like the Das Ari we saw in Tosus and back in the Sugya and Avodah Zarah, that like the Ri and not like Rabbeinu Tam, because according to Rabbeinu Tam, it would be a place that's mefursam that everybody does al pi kablanos, or at least that's rov. The Rosh said that rov people do it al pi kablanos, which means that you hire a what do you call it? You hire a what's just left a what's it called? In charge of all your work. English word. Pardon? No. When you build something, anytime you hire a
contractor.
Contractor, thank you.
Project manager. Contractor.
Yeah, contractor. Yeah. So and that's the ofen and mutter. And so Shidduch Rabbeinu Tam is that would be mutter even by, we're talking about avodas karka. It's talking about building a bais. When you have a contractor to do it, it's you're not paying by the day or by the hour. You're paying by the job, and he decides to do it on Shabbos. According to Rabbeinu Tam, if that's the minig of magom, then that's mutter. The Ri, if you remember, was only cholek because he says that the regilus is to do it through skirei yom. If it was masha from the Ri, if you remember that if that would be the derech, then it would be okay. It's just that it's not. And over here, it sounds like even if it would be the derech, was kosher for orchim, they're going to come in from other places that have the normal derech to skirei yom, and that'll still be a problem with marasayin. So now over here also we spoke out the fact that we have a special knas, because since it's done through your schiris and it's done often shel parhesia, the special knas, that's why it's asur l'olam, and it's asur afilu lo dorbo. If it's done by isur, then it should be asur to even live in that house. And the Bach says that b'diavad, if it was done already, the shal is if b'diavad was done. We're saying for sure the chatchila can't be done. B'diavad is done according to the Shulchan Aruch, it's taka asur. It would be asur to lo dorbo. But the Bach says that Kedai Rabbeinu Tam lismuch alav to at least b'diavad to say that the house does not become asur. So that's the first opening to this to a heterim over here is this Bach, and we'll speak more about this later on in Sif Gimel, Sif Beis and Gimel. We'll see that others also are starved to the Dasher Ben Tan L'Akel. Now Rabbi Kieger over here says that Be'ir Shakulam Regilim Liskor B'Kablanos Hirachti B'Tshuvasi Ve'Leisa L'Hatir. So he says he wrote at length in the Tshuva, if it's a city that everyone is rugil to do it b'kablanos, there is nobody who does it b'schiras, then he holds a mutter. But he says to ma'ayin and two Tshuvas. One is the Noda Yehuda, and the Noda Yehuda actually starts off like Rabbi Kieger, and he learns it the same way, that if it be an Ir Shakuloi, or an Ir or a Medina that's kulam, they do it al yedei kablanos. So there's nothing to be choshesh for schiras, but he ends off and says, even though he holds that in Iker Din, he holds that, but we still have to be concerned about orchim that come from other places that do it al yedei schiras, like the Ramal says over here, you have to be choshesh for orchim. So because of that, the Noda Yehuda is machmir, even though he holds like Rabbi Kieger that really should be mutter. It's how the people in this city. And then he says also Rabbi Kieger to look at the Shoot Maria Levi, that's the brother of the Taz. So there also he starts off like Rabbi Kieger that it should be mutter. But he ends off with a different svara, based on the Ram that we saw in the end of Tosas, that anytime money is exchanged, you don't take from the Gufa Karka, like an Aris, like a sharecropper, then we're always choshesh for Marasayin, and that's considered an Isser Me'ikra Din. The Chazal will never matter that at all, whenever there's going to be exchange of money, especially from the one who's hiring to the other person, to the worker. So he ends up with an Isser. So Rabbi Kieger himself seems not to hold that way, but he quotes the Maria Levi. I'm not sure what it means. If he means to say, therefore, one should still be machmer, not like me, because the Maria Levi is kosher for the Ram. Rabbi Kieger was not. So it's not so clear. But the Bir Halacha over here writes Barichos, and also starts off saying that Rov Rishonim certainly hold like Rabbeinu Tam. Rav Rishonim hold, and even the Be'etzim holds like a Rabbeinu Tam. Besides Ikar Din, it's just that the is always says that the Regilus, what was commonplace was to do it through Schiras, actually paying the person by the day or the month, or Schira Yom. That was the Regilus. They would in those days they would drive to Home Depot and pick up with a pickup truck and pick up a bunch of guys waiting outside and bring them home and have them work for the day and pay them for the day. That was the Regilus in those days. So, the issue they're dancing around over there is really Bein Rabbeinu Tam. Bein the Ri is about Regilus. Is it Ragil? Is it not Ragil? Are we choshesh for that or not? But none of them hold that it's Asr Mikra Din. If it's going to be Asr, it's only going to be Asr Mitzad Marasayan, not Mikra Din, because Mikra Din, Be'etzim, you are doing the right thing. You're doing it through kablanas. So the Bir Halacha says Rov Rishonim seem to hold that way. However, there's a list of Rishonim that hold like the Ram, including the Ran, and he brings a few other Rishonim there, and therefore he ends off that one should be machmir. But it sounds like even he's saying B'di'evid it should be mutter taka though. B'di'evid there's certainly al milismoch not to have to aser the house, even though according to the Dasar Shulchan Aruch it should be aser. But we have a very wide list of Rishonim to be samachan to not aser the house B'di'evid if it was done B'isr, if it was done and Rav Moshe and the Tshuva even takes the Bir Halacha to task. Why is he even counting those Rishonim against the Ikar Rishonim that we have, like which are the Rambam, the Ramban, the Ri, the Rabbeinu Tam, and the Rush? How would you even by a deraisa, which should be somewhat on them, at least B'di'evid, against even if it be a shala deraisa, Keneged the list that the Mishnah Berurah creates, which is the Ram, one Shita of the Ran, and the Riyaz, the Shilta Giborim, and so it's they're Chashav Rishonim, but he says they don't add up to the Ikar Rishonim should be PM Anachayim that we live the Ikar Sodistic Rishonim that are clearly saying that it's not Asr Ikar Din whenever there's a transfer of money, but it's only a Shala of Regilus and Marasayan. So therefore, Moshe very strongly holds that like the Mishnah Berurah himself also seems told that we have what's in Samachan that we would not aser b'diavad chatchila. We shouldn't do it. We shouldn't let it be done, even though there's even a routine matzah chatchila for so many Rishonim. Because Rav Moshe adds one important prat. Rav Moshe adds that today there's not even orchim to be worried about. Right? The Mishnah Berurah mentions the Nodi B'Yehuda, but mentions also the Choshesh for Orchim. Rav Moshe says that there's nowhere, not in the city, not in the country, not in the world, that the minhag of the entire world today is to do it al-yedei kabbalas. You take, like in Hebrew, a menahel avodah, like you take one person in charge and you pay him, and that's his job now to finish the whole thing off. So since the derech of the world is bakablanas, Rav Moshe holds there's nothing to be choshesh for, even marasayin anymore. So there is mal lismoch. Even we have to ask a shaila if he would actually do it or not. But certainly b'diavad would not ask for the house. Okay, so. Yeah, there's just another nekuda the Magen Avraham to keep in mind is that the Magen Avraham says it's an important thing that in a place where, let's say, you live in a place that they wouldn't let the workers work on Sunday. You have certain laws like that. You're not allowed to build on Sunday. That's pretty much like in Texas like that, at least in Dallas. Sunday is a very you don't have builders out there building on Sunday. So he says that since they are makpid on their Sabbath, not to let people work and build things, if we would be makel and based on all these Torahs that we have and be makel to let somebody work on Shabbos, so then that would be a chilul Hashem. That we're sending the message that their Sabbath is more chashuv than our Shabbos. That they wouldn't let anybody work on even a non-Christian to come in and build their house. To take some some far eastern workers that aren't Christians anyway. They don't have the Sabbath. They wouldn't let them do that because here it's Sabbath, so that's it. So it'd be a chilul Hashem to let somebody work on our Shabbos. Okay, that's for Sif Aleph. Moving over to Sif Beis. Shulchan Aruch says, "Liv sol ha'avonim l'saken hakoros," to chisel the stones and to prepare the beams, afilu b'beis shel akum, even if it's being done in the house of the akum, the goy aser came into the tzarach mechuber. Since it's l'tzarach mechuber, it's for the sake of the binyan, so then that has a separate chumer to it. That it's considered a davar mefursam to that's going to be going for the binyan of the Yisrael, and therefore it's aser. It's nichlal and the gzeir of mechuber. We add also everything that's l'tzarach mechuber. So it's a chiddush on top of a chiddush, but that's what we come out that it's considered one wider gzeira that includes everything that's for the binyan. And the Ramah says yesh omrim im einu mefursam shu Yisrael shari. So the only time that the Ramah holds is that it's aser, and then we extend the gzeira of mechuber to the stones, the sticks and stones. That's only when it's a davar mefursam. Everybody knows what he's doing. I'm not sure how it became mefursam that way, but that's what he says. So now the poskim say Dagam Revava says over here that since this whole thing is a chiddush, this whole it's extended gzera like this is a chiddush, and like the Ramah says has to be mefursam. So the Dagam Revava says here that, by the way, just to know, the Dagam Revava is from the author of the Nodi B'Yehuda, same person. So he says that Dai lahachmer b'zeh, if the stones are owned by the Yisrael, I guess that's why it's mefursam, is because somehow the Jew already bought these stones and brought it to the worker, so that's the only way of being mefursam. If the stones or the wood belongs to the goy, even if it's mefursam that it's being done for the sake of the Yisrael, it still doesn't matter, because since if he decides he can make up his mind. Because let's say a buyer walks in, and a goyish buyer walks in at the last minute after he chiseled all the stones and says, "I'll pay you a lot of money for these," and he'll say, "So great, I'll sell it to you for cash right now, and I'll chisel more stones for this Jew." He has a choice to do that. So he's still, that he's doing it is still considered a daita de nafshe, and it's not really for the sake of the Jew, and so it's not, unless it's owned by the Jew, then there's no Isser. That's his Chiddush. Mishnah Berurah on that says that Kfar Kodmoi Haradvaz, that the Radvaz who preceded the Neder Yehuda by a couple hundred years, he already says the same Chiddush as well. But he says, therefore, you can certainly rely on this. However, he says, but if it's Samuch Labinyan, if it's being done, everybody knows that it's this Jewish house being built, and even if the Goy owns the stones, but he's like I've ever seen the Arabs in Israel, when they chisel the stones, they sit right there, like right next to the building, and they chisel it away and they stick it in. They're sitting right there and doing it. So like that, to do it like that next to the Yiddish Abinyan, so that the Mishnah Berurah says it's not kedai to be samach on that because it's Maras Ayin. Because he looks like he's working on your building right now. So it's a lot closer to the Iker Gzeira of Mechuber. Magen Avraham was test on this sif said he asked a kasha on the Ola Shabbos, the steer in the Ola Shabbos. That's one of the svarim that Magen Avraham often quotes. Ayin Shin stands for Ola Shabbos. He says that because of Ola Shabbos from Mechuber, I feel the ain't before some aser. By Mechuber, even if it's not Mefursam, it's aser. V'charka kasav the ain't before some lo garab and Mechuber. Mashma is feel that it's shari. So he has to steer that it's mashma that even by Mechuber it's mutter if it's in a davar Mefursam. So the Vushei Srad, and actually the Mishnah Berurah, let's take a step back. The Vushei Srad says that the etzem iser is b'mechuber. When it's enim b'fursam, the reason why is it aser b'mechuber when it's not b'fursam? Why? Because of a low plug. Right? Because what's going on over here? Let's just take the case. The guy is building a house for you. It's mechuber. He is a kablan. So mitzad the etzem schiris is mutter, but there's a problem of marasayin. We say mechuber is considered davar before some. But let's say it's not before some, so we still say it's aser because we make a low plug. We make a low plug, and all mechuber we consider to be davar before some. That's why the Ramah says that it's dai lanu to use this, to exercise this low plug when it comes to the actual mechuber. But if it's, let's say, stones like we have in this sif that are not mechuber be'etzem, they're just for mechuber, that's already a tosefes in the gzera. So that's dailan al-hachmir if it's a davar mefursam. If it's enu mefursam, we don't have to say that low plug by the stones when it's not mefursam. So that's how the Levush Esrad explains the stira and the Ola Shabbos, that the Ola Shabbos doesn't mean enu mechuber is mutter by enu mefursam is mutter by mechuber mamish. He means by stones that are for the sake of mechuber, and we don't have to be machmer so far in this low plug. So because again the mechuber itself is only because of a low plug. So and then we're extending it further to the stones. So the extension to the stones, that's too far to extend it, to say that even the stones are not before some. Okay. Now, the Mishnah Berurah, Apir the Gra, and others writes that the pshat in this Ramah is according, like we just said, according to Levush Esrad, the Ramah that's saying it's enu before some is not being made by the binyan itself; it's only by the stones. But the Gra and other Achronim, the Mishnah Berurah say that the Ramah means even the binyan itself. If it's rochach mina yishuv and nobody knows that it's a baal in Yisrael, and the Kabbalah wants to work on Shabbos, then the Yisrael doesn't have to stop him. And that has huge ramifications. If somebody is building a building in often some small town, some Goyish town, and nobody really knows that it's Jewish, then there's no Isser according to this. According to this, the Gra Aliba the Ramah. But the Maskana of the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat and Yilches is that one should not, Lemaisa should not be makel except for by Situs Avanim, by chiseling the stones, and not by Binyan Mamish. Because he says what to be choshesh for those who do know that you own this building, or you own this lot. There might be maybe nobody over there knows it, but others might know it, or other coworkers or people in your company or your family might know you have it there, and it's going to go on Shabbos. So therefore, it's included. Even though there's nobody there that will see it, it's included in the low plug. Now, I would assume that since that's the Noskan of the Mishnah Berurah. I don't have any experience with this, the Maisa, but I would assume that if there will be a real case of Shasat Chak, that there's some really, really compelling reason why this building, the Jewish owner, the silent Jewish owner who's building a building in Tibet, that, and nobody knows that it's a Jewish building, then if there's a reason, then I can see there's al mi lismoch if we have the Gra, according to the Ramah, holds that it's mutter, that no one knows the Jewish thing. So I guess it would be a case-by-case question to bring that up when it comes up, if somebody would have that Shiloh. Going on to Sif Gimel, in Banu Akum LiYisrael Bayis B'Shabbos B'Isser Nachon LaHachmir Shelo Yikansubo. The Shulchan Aruch uses the lashon Nachon LaHachmir. Not that it's usher to go into it, but it's proper to machmir not to use this house. Now, it's not usher b'hana, so the post can point out that even according to the Mechaber, you're allowed, you can be nene from it. You could sell it to somebody else. It doesn't come Isur Hana, but he says it's proper to be machmir, not to live in it. The Ramah adds though, miu, which is a very common occurrence, in masna Yisrael in akum shelo lasos the malacha b'Shabbos, va'akum asa bal korchoi the mahir lahashlo malachto and lachush. So if you already stipulated with the goy not to do it on Shabbos, and then he turned around and did it anyway, so it says ein lachush. So ein lachush, the Magen Ram says that means you don't have to even be moche. As long as you told him not to do it and he's doing it on his own, then you don't have ein lachush to be moche to stop him. The Mishnah Berurah brings though that there are many that have a pella on that so if people see it, they see all they see is the work. They don't know that you made it tonight. So it still goes back to Marasayan and possibly Chil Hashem. So they have a problem with not being mocha. For sure, you should be mocha. But that's as far as the macha goes. But as far as living in it, so again, we're talking over here a case where it was done through kabbalanus. And so the das of the Shulchan Aruch is he's holding like in Sif Aleph, like the real Gamri, but maybe even more so that there's no heter at all, even kabbalanus, whether it's mefursam or not. It doesn't go into that whole shiloh whether it's mefursam, it's kabbalanus, or the minhag is not that way. But here all the posts can point out the same thing we said previously, that we have the Bach, and the Taz over here quotes the Bach as well, and also the Magen Avraham mentions it in Sifkat Yud when he says Nochal LaHachmir. The Magen Avraham says, "Bach Kasa de Kablanas Yesh Lisnach Rabbeinu Tam Mutter B'Diavad." Right, the Rabbeinu Tam held that it's mutter even in a case where there are some people that do it as Schira Yom. It's not nearly as khalid as it is today. That nobody does it that way. But even there are some, as long as there are many that don't, Rabbeinu Tam held that since Kabbalanus Betzim is mutter, then it's mutter. So all the Achronim were saying that, not like the Shulchan Aruch, that Kedai, who Rabbeinu Tam lismach alav, at least for B'Diavad, that you're allowed to lodor, but you're allowed to live in it. And Kol Sheken, if you stipulated not to work on Shabbos, Kal V'chomer, that would be mutter. But even in a regular case, they're all paskin like Rabbeinu Tam.
Rabbi?
Yes.
What's the nature of the Isser Hana? Is it a knas?
Yes.
Is that why we're going to be makel if what's it called? If the goy did it against your will?
Yeah, because there's nothing to be constant. You don't deserve a knas.
So meaning, even though there's a Mari saying, it's just that we're not holding you culpable, or whatever the lashon is. Sorry, my brain's still turning on today. But we're not holding you accountable for the Mari sign issue that happened.
Yeah, the knas will be the only thing that would aser at B'Diavad. And if you remember, we talked a couple times ago that that gufa is one of the chilukim between what's asur mitzad ikar din or what's asur mitzad marasayin. That whatever's asur marasayin is always mutter b'diavad.
Right. I got you. Thank you.
Yeah. So now in this, the words of the Shulchan Aruch, in the pshat in the Shulchan Aruch itself, it says nachal nahachmir. Even the Shulchan Aruch himself is not saying that it's mamish asur. He's saying it's only nachal nahachmir. So the Taz learns that it's an iser gomer l'chatchila. That's that even though your mamish were socher over here, we're not, even if it wasn't a kabbalah, it was done mamish through schiras. It's still only nachal nahachmir. It doesn't. It's only asur. It's asur mikir adin, but l'chatchila. It's like a strange kind of thing. We're asering it l'chatchila. The l'chatchila you shouldn't go and live in it. So according to the Taz, the way the Achronim explained, the Levushay Srad speaks out over here that according to the Taz, if it would be done through kablanas, even though the Shulchan Aruch doesn't allow that either, but there would not be a yesh lahachmir at all. It would only be asur chatchila mamish, but there'd be no macham lahachmir, according to the Taz. But according to the Magen Avraham, the Magen Avraham in Sifkat Yud Aleph says that it's not considered over here your overall al ikar din, because you're a katzatz, and when you're katzatz, it's kabbalanus, it's considered a daikted nafshe, and therefore it's only a chomer to machmer and not the ikar din. It comes out that according to him, there is macham lahachmer even by kabbalanus, not to live in it, because that's the case according to Magen Avraham. Again, according to the Taz, the case is the way the Achronim explained. According to the Taz, the case of the Shulchan Aruch is even through schiras, even though it's asur mikra din, it's still only asur l'chatchila to live in it. According to Magen Avraham, we're talking about kabbalanus. So if it would be schiras, it would be more than just lachmir. Yes, lachmir. It would be mamish asur to be named from it, according to the Das Shulchan Aruch. If leaving out the tzir for the Rebbeinu Tam, like we said before. But according to the Das Shulchan Aruch, it would be asur mikra din. To live in if it was through schiras, and the chiddush is that even if it was through kabbalanus, that the Taz would hold that you'd be allowed to live in it l'chatchila if it was done through kabbalanus, because you were only over marasayin. According to the Magen Avraham, it's more than marasayin. It's even kabbalanus has a real isser to it. Once we asr to mechuber, and there will be yesh l'hachmer even by kabbalanus. That's the way the Levushay Srad explains, and the Shar Tzion as well. Now, the svara of this is the Magen Avraham l'shitaso that, if you remember, learned he brought down the Maria Buav and held that even certain types of kablanas are going to be asur mikra din. The Shar Tzion points that out. That Magen Avraham over here is also the shitaso to mitzad the marasayin shabo, is that the Magen Avraham learns. The Magen Avraham here mentions to look at. To look in Shin Chaf Hey Sifya Daled. Shin Chaf Sifya Daled is the sif that talks about the kever over there. That we said it's asur, and when it's davar mefursam, like the Rambam said, it's asur olam. And there the Magen Avraham pointed out that's going to be hu din. All Amir La'akim is going to have the same din. It's all going to be asur for the same reason. That if it's a davar mefursam, it's asur olam. That's what comes out from the Magen Avraham. So the Magen Avraham is much more machmer over here than the Taz comes out. But even the Magen, the Chomer of the Magen Avraham, more than the Taz, is all liba to Shulchan Aruch, the way he learns Pshat in the Shulchan Aruch. But still, the Maisa, the Magen Avraham himself already pointed out that according to the Bach, we can be makel to mitzar for ben tam shita over here. So the halacha l'maisa, we're still going to be makel b'diavad. We're still going to. It's a question of what the Shulchan Aruch really means. But halacha ma'aseh is going to all be the same. Okay. Now it's interesting that the Mishnah Brura passes like this, like the Magen Avraham story over here, and he says that if it would be schirei yom, right? This nafkamin halacha does come out in Ben Tam. Is that if it would be schirei yom, so which the Taz said that it's even that you're only machmer l'chatchila, the Magen Avraham would say that would be asur b'diavad. because Magen Avraham explained that the Shulchan Aruch is talking about kabbalas. So it comes out in big nafkamina la'alacha, according to Magen Avraham, if it would be done through schira yom, if you did it b'isser, then there would talk about usher not only with hatchila but even b'diavad to live in this house. And that's the psak of the Mishnah Berurah. He says if it would be schira yom, it's usher mikra din and usher la'olam. At least for this person. For acherim, it will be mutar b'chtesh yasu, like we said over there by a kever as well. Only by kabbalanus, the Magen Avraham says yesh nismach Rabbeinu Tam. If it was really truly built through kabbalanus, it was built with a what do you call it again? A
contractor.
I don't know. I have a mental block to that word for some reason. Certain words I hear them 100 times a day. So through a contractor, then only that will have the heter b'diavad. Mashenken, if it was really done through schira yom, if you actually did break yourself away from the norm of hiring a contractor, and you went yourself. There's actually a guy down the street from me, an Israeli. Of course, it would be an Israeli. That I asked him he bought the house and it needs to be totally renovated, and he's not a builder; he's a locksmith. They're always the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. So he's a locksmith, very sweet guy, geschmacka guy. He told me his house has to be totally renovated. He's talking to different people to hire to do it, contractors. And so I asked him at the end, so who's doing your house? He said, me. So he said, why should I pay all that extra money to a contractor? I can go hire the people myself and I'll have them do it. So, even in his case, so he's probably going to be hiring subcontractors, not going to be going to Home Depot, picking up workers to go and work by the day. But the person would break the norm and actually hire day workers. If he would make himself the contractor and the subcontractor, and he would just hire the workers themselves, which they do. Some contractors often hire the workers by the day. If he did that himself, then enachanavi, if it would be done on Shabbos, that would be asur mikra din. Okay, going on to just one last nakuda that we mentioned before, that when it says, the Ramah says ein lachash, it means you don't have to be mocha, and the Achronim said that they disagree with that. You do have to be mocha. It was a word about Chil Hashem or Marasayan, but the Mishnah Berurah says, since you told him not to, and he's working anyway, then mocha, yes, but if you can't stop him unless you pay him to stop, if you have to pay him off, that far you don't have to go, because you did your part by telling him not to do it, and you asked him, and then you came to your mocha also to put out money. That's different. Now, if you were never stipulated to begin with not to work on Shabbos, you made a mistake, you never made the stipulation, now he's working on Shabbos, and then the only way to stop him is by paying money, then the Mishnah Berurah has a suffix. Then possibly you would have to pay money. You created the problem by not telling him. But if you told him not to, and that was a stipulation, and you're mocha and he's not, then you don't have to put money out to stop him. Let him. If he won't stop, he can keep working. Okay. Now Sif Daled. Meleches farhesia afilim metaltalin. Kagon sfina hayadua liyisrael dina kamal meleches mechuber. So anything which is farhesia, like it's metaltalin, it's a movable thing. Like I don't know. I guess a sfina is considered movable. A ship, a boat is building a boat for you. So, but it's yadua liyisrael, then it's considered like meleches mechuber. So, because the bottom line really is not the mechuber shabor, the bottom line is really the farhesia. That's really the point. And the Mishnah Berurah says we're talking about the whole chiddush of this sif is if the boat is not b'reshus Yisrael. If it was b'reshus Yisrael, then it's pasha that it's also even if it's not davar before some. As we'll see in Rishon and Beis, actually, I think the Magen Avraham points this out here too as well. Let's see here. Oh yeah. The Magen Avraham points out another point that Rishon and Beis, it has to be it has to not be Bereshus Yisrael, otherwise there's no Chiddush. Obviously, it's Asur. But the Isser is only if it's in a Makom Mefursam. That's what you see in Rishon and Beis. Sif Gimel. He says, therefore, Nakat Sfina, the Regilus Lasas Farhesia. They pick something like a Sfina. Sfina is usually, it's done at the dock. They build it at the dock. It's Makom Mefursam. And that's why we say we have Chumrah, even though it's a davar shel, but it has to be in a makom mefursam. Mashen can, let's say the tailor is making a suit in his shop, so it's not a makom mefursam, and even some people might know it's for the sake of a Jew, but he's doing it it's kablanis, and he's doing it outside of the Rishus Yisrael, and it's not makom mefursam. It's not a makom shah for Estia, even though some people might know about it and walk by and see. They can say that he's sewing a frock. So obviously he's making it for Jews. Who else is wearing a frock? Unless they're some of the people lead the orchestra, but it's a different kind of frock. Actually the Magen Avraham points out in the Gra, there seems to be a little bit of a steer in the Shulchan Aruch here, that here, in Rishon and Beis, he says, if it's a Makom Mefursam, yesh lahachmir, ta'asr it. And over here it's mashma that if it's Makom Mefursam, then it's asr me'ikar din. So they discuss back and forth if it's a steer or not, but the Maisa, they say that if it is a steer, we're passing like the halacha over here, that if it's a makom mefursam, then it's asur me'ikar din. Then it can't be nen el olam, like we said by a kever. Okay. Just going a little further before I run out of steam. In Sif Hey, Shulchan Aruch says, "In Sachar Akum L'Shana or L'Shtayim, Shichtov Lo or Shiyarag Lo Beged, Har Zekosev Orig B'Shabbos, Kilo Katzatz Imo, Shichtov Lo Sefer or Shiyarag Lo Beged, She'osev B'Chol Eish Yirtze." So the Shulchan Aruch is passing like the Rambam. This is a Machlokes Rambam and Ravid, but the Shulchan Aruch is passing like the Rambam that. We know that the prototype of what's mutter is a Maisa Kablanis. If I do Kablanis on a particular, let's say, to tailor a suit for me, that's Kablanis. That's the classic case of Kablanis. I'm not paying not by the day, not by the hour. I'm paying by the suit. I have somebody that's building for me tables and chairs, table and chairs. So. I'm not paying by the hour or by the day. I'm paying for the product that he creates. So the shaila is, if I hire somebody to do all my writing that I do done in my office, to write up all the statements, whatever writing. It's a law office, and all the cases have to be written up in a certain way. And I hire the person to do over the course of a year, hired for a year, to write up what has to be written up. So the Machlokes Rambam and Ravid. The Rambam says, there's all this in the tour, but the Shittas Rambam is that since I'm giving him one particular type of job to do, but Pashtus, we'll see in the Achronim, the assumption is that if he doesn't have any of that to do, he won't be doing anything at all. If he's not writing, he's not going to find other things to do. So he's paid simply just to write. So that is tantamount to me hiring him to, let's say I hire somebody to write a book for me, to author a book. So I'm going to pay him at the end for the book. I'm not paying him by the hour. I'm paying for the book. But let's say instead of paying by the book, I'll say I'll pay you by the year to write this book. So the Rambam holds that that's tantamount to hiring to write a book. I'm not hiring just to be a general worker for me. I'm hiring him for this job of writing the book. I'm just doing it year by year. So that doesn't become a schiras lazman. It's still focused on the book. So the Rambam says, who then any particular malacha that you hire somebody to do for a year, that particular malacha, then it's like you made him a kabbalan on that malacha rather than a day worker, or a month worker, or even a year worker based on the time. It's focused on that particular malacha. That's the Shittas Rambam. The Ravid disagrees. That sof kol sof, since you stipulated a year and not the book, therefore you are still hiring him lazman. He's still considered a socher. It's still considered schiras. That's the machlokas. Shulchan Aruch paskins over here like the Rambam, and he says that, like we just read, it's ki'ilu katatz imo sheyichtav. You weren't really kotzets. You didn't really set a price on the book. You're setting a price per year to work on the book, but it's since you set it for such a longer, extended period of time, and you're not makpid on any particular Shabbos to work or any particular day to work. You just overall is going to work over the year, or to weave a beged. It's a humongous beged that's going to cover your. It's going to be I don't know, the facade of your house or something like that. It's going to take a year to weave this thing, or to weave a number of begadim for a play that's going to be in a year. So that's tantamount to a hilu katzatzimo. It's as if you were kotzets to do that particular work. The Shulchan Aruch gets off. Why? You're not makpid on when he does it. He does it whenever he wants to get it done. You're not gonna be a stickler on every single day to see if he worked every single day. And another stipulation is that it's not done in the Beis Yisrael. So with all the stipulations, he ends off yesh mish oser b'socher akum l'zman. That's the Shittas Ravid. Then that in any way, shape, or form, you hire somebody for Zman, then all these heterim don't help. It still remains Asr. That's the Shita of the Ravid. But the Shulchan Aruch's main halacha, the main psak of the Shulchan Aruch is like the Rambam. Okay, so now, the Taz points out over here that even according to the Rambam, it's only mutter. Before we go into the Taz, we'll just take one step further. Let's take a look at the Ramah. The Ramah says, it's only if you had one particular malacha. If you said, I'm hiring you for a year to do everything that needs to be done in my office, if you're writing, good. If you're not writing, then I need you to be weaving. If you're not weaving, then I need to be cleaning. Whatever it is, so you have to always be doing something. Then that's usher even according to the Rambam. So we'll have to understand what precisely is the chiluk between the two. What precisely is sof kol sof? It's both for a year. So what's the difference if it's one malacha or a number of malachas? What's really the difference? So the Taz wants to say that even according to the Rambam, he's not matir unless you're not makpid on the zman. You're not makpid on every day. Because only if you're not makpid on every single day, but you're more makpid on the overall work that's being done, only then it's considered kabbalanus. Because what we're affecting over here, we're accomplishing over here is to take it out of the realm of schiras and put it into the realm of kabbalanus. So the Taz says that the first ingredient you need, even the Rambam, is that, and we see from the Taz, is that you're not makpid on every single day. Which that's Megala, that you're more concerned about the work being done that has to be done, not that he's working every single day. So a year doesn't mean every day of the year. It doesn't mean 365. It means those jobs have to be done during the year. Now the Taz is the Shitaso that he says in. Well, I'll tell you. Well, I'll make it more simple because it's going to get a little complicated. We'll look at this. The summary, Mishnah Berurah has a very clear summary of the Machlokas Magen Avraham and the Taz over here in Pshat in the Rambam in Shulchan Aruch. That Magen Avraham holds that the heter of the Rambam is only when you're doing the malacha that you're hired to do, you're doing it. If not, then you have nothing else to do. You could be Yoshed Batal, and you're not makpid on that. Okay, if you're supposed to be writing things that have to be written over the year, if there's no writing to be done, he's still getting paid by the year. And that day, he can sit and read a book, or he can do whatever he wants that day. But you're not going to find him other things to do. So the fact that you're not mocking it every day and you're allowing him, he's really just focusing on that particular job. So the Magen Avraham says that's why it's considered kabbalanus and not schiris. Because Batson, even if he does work on Shabbos, you're not really marviach from the fact that he's working on Shabbos. You have no revach from that, because as long as he's going to get the job done, maybe he's working on Shabbos because he wants to take Sunday off. It's up to him. It's fine. Because if you be mocking on every day that he does something, so then the fact that he works on Shabbos, you are marviach, because now he has more time to do something the next day. But if you're not mocking on every day, then that's mamash turns in it. That's what turns it into a kabbalanus. You just want him to do that work, and he can do it on his own time. As long as it gets done, you don't care if he does it in the middle of the night or whatever it is. But only then is a kabbalanus. If you are makbid on that, then you are marviach from the fact that he works on Shabbos. Because if you remember, going back to the Maria Buov, we saw in Reish and Gimel, it all depended on, and the Magen Avraham went with that all depended on whether you're marviach from the fact that he works on Shabbos or not. If you're marviach, then the Bach asked, "Who cares if you're marviach?" L'maisa, it's that nafshe. But that was the Maria Buov. If you're marviach for that fact, if he works on Shabbos, then that's what's usher. So you need that you're not makbid on working every day in order to make it that you're not marviach from the Shabbos, because since he might not work a different day anyway, he can do it that day or this day. It doesn't really matter to you. According to the Taz, even in a case where you are makbid on the days, even if you would be marviach from the fact that it's on Shabbos, it's still mutter. It's still kabbalanus of the Rambam, as long as you're not makbid and mamash on every day. Even if you're generally makbid, but you're not makbid on every single day, because then the Taz agrees that the Rambam would say it's taka asar if you're mamash makbid in every single day. But if I'll speak out. I think I didn't make it so clear. The Nekudas Machlokas, the place, the nafkamina between the Magen Avraham and the Taz will be if you hire him to write constantly. You're supposed to constantly be writing up. There's always what to write. So both the Magen Avraham and the Taz agree that you can't be makbid that he writes every single day. Because if you are, then your mamash hire him for Shabbos. The question is if his job is to write constantly, but he knows if he takes off a day here and there, you're not going to be makbid. So if that was the case, then the Magen Avraham holds that that's usher, because his job is to write constantly. And the Taz holds that since he could take a day off here and there, and you won't be makbid on him, even that's mutter. That's the Mishnah Berurah speaks out, the machlokas. And the Mishnah Berurah is interesting. He's not machriya. He just brings out in the two shitas, Magen Avraham and the Taz. It's a little more mashma, the fact that he brings the Taz last. He quotes them both by name, which is unusual, and he also quotes the Taz last. So the klal generally would be is the one he brings last is the one he really holds like more. And it's sort of mashma like that from the Bir Halacha also, that he's really going with the Taz. So even if you did hire the guy to write throughout the entire year, as long as you're not if he takes off a day here and there, you're not makbid on him, then we still give it the kula of kabbalanus, according to the Taz, leave with the Rambam. That seems to be the shaka of the Mishnah Berurah.
What if the akpada is more on a certain amount of hours a week, but you don't usually define when those hours have to be? Meaning, like nowadays with salaried workers, right? It tends to be that salaries are versus like hourly workers, right? So they want you to work a certain amount of hours, and but especially if people are working at home these days. So like people's hours are crazy. Like people will do things at 11 o'clock at night or 1 a.m, or or weekends or this or that. Is there an issue with like I need to know that you're clocking in 40 hours a week? It has to be, but I don't care when they are. Not talking about HTSY workers, of course.
What?
Not talking about Makarvim, of course, like working on Shabbos. But
Yeah, we're hired 24/7. No time off. Question. My hargasha is that it's okay. That it's considered a daita b'nafshe, but I'll have to look into that to make sure. Because you are, so of course, if you are paying by the hour, so he is a sacher, a real sacher. But
the schirus is really more just it's a means of
it's finding a way to pay him, right?
Well, it's a means of holding him accountable that he's working, right? It's more that I want the product, like meaning I want you to build my website, and I'm paying you, and that's what you do for me, and you're overseeing it, right? So what really matters to me is that the website's well kept, let's say, right? I don't really care when you do your work, but I need accountability, so you need to keep your hours, right?
Yeah,
so
So this I saw in the Sefer Commerce and Shabbos.
Which one?
It's called Commerce and Shabbos. It's very
okay.
On all these halachas. It's a son-in-law of Shlomo Miller from Toronto.
Oh, okay.
And he quotes his father-in-law saying that if you that often, let's say you want a particular, like you say, the website upkept or kept up properly or whatever the job like that is, but so what you care about is the product. It's just that, and you're paying for that product. But the only way but how exactly do you calculate how to pay for that product? So the easiest way to calculate it is by the hours of the weeks the person works for it. So the hourly calculation really is just a calculation of how to pay for that product, rather than paying for the hour.
Right. It's an ongoing product. Right.
When you say you want the guy just to make sure he's working the 40 hours a week, you don't really doesn't care about the 40 hours a week. You care that the website is kept up.
Right.
So that is the product. Then Shlomo Miller said in that case that you don't stipulate the days, and you don't care about that really at all. That it's just it's the most convenient way of calculating the value of having that work or having that object that he's building for you or keeping up for you. So then he says that's not considered a sker yom. That's considered a still kabalanis.
Oh, okay.
That's why my hargasha is your case would be the same. Your question is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
He's talking there about making a product. He's talking about, let's say somebody's going to build you a table. Okay, so he doesn't really know how much I pay you. I'm not really sure how to calculate this. Okay, we'll see how long it takes you to build it, then I'll pay you for the table. I'll pay.
Right.
I'll pay you for the table based on a $20 an hour. So,
right. Exactly.
So he says that the Tanai is like this, which that's why I'm not totally sure. The Tanai, he says, is that if in the case of the table, if the table never gets built, I don't pay the guy till he delivers the table. Okay, if he doesn't deliver, I don't pay him no matter how many hours he worked, because he's working not for his. It was just a calculation to pay him the table. If I have to pay him for the hours, whether or not he does the table, so then that's no longer kabbalah. That's chirus. So that's the question over here. If the person is working on the website and you're paying him 40 hours a week for it, so are you going to pay him whether or not the website is where it belongs? You pay him by the week, and every week you're going to pay him, and the website still has more work to do. You're paying him anyway, so even though he hasn't actually delivered the website yet. Or if the website's already there, it's already up. Now it's a question of upkeep on the website.
Right. That was more the original model, especially when you're talking about a salaried worker. But right, I hear the website. Right. Yeah.
It's hard to know if that's considered a product.
Well, Lichora, there, all the products as he's doing them, they're automatically you're getting them. No, meaning if you have a painter, and you're paying him, so the product, right, is the painted rooms. So if at the end of the week he's done 20 rooms out of 100 rooms for you, right? Like he's delivered some of the product already, you know? As opposed to like the table where it's like it's all or nothing.
Mhm. It's a very good question. I have to look at that a little more.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. There is more to speak about over here, but I think we're out of time and out of koach. So maybe we'll next time we have to finish anyway. Sif Vav over here. We're not going to do Sif Vav today. And we also remember we still are missing a Sif that we didn't talk about. A very important Sif of Afsha Milsa in the end of Shin Zion. If I make that up as well. Maybe we'll put that on the Ramakomas to go back. I don't know how much people really did that. And let's to be matched that over there, so we don't leave it in loose end. And this Sif over here, and then we'll go on to the next Sif Simon. So we'll put the Ramakomas for that. It's a for next week. So that'd be next week. I think the following week will be off for like the winter break for a week.
Okay. Rabbi, are there any makorot on Havlah that are going to become relevant here that are worth looking into, or is that only by a Jew doing work on Shabbos?
Havlah, I mean, we've had the concept of Havlah has come up. Havlah basically will be in a case where, let's like a case we're talking about right now, that the person's working on Shabbos as well. You can't pay him for the Shabbos, even though he might work on Shabbos, and you're not gaining. So it's the person say that's called paying Havlah. But yeah, I mean, mostly the discussion of Havlah comes up more by a Jew working, like a babysitter,
Okay.
but it comes also by a cleaning lady.
Right.
She comes in just for Shabbos. We always say to have her come also during the week a little bit. So you pay her one thing about Havlah.
Gotcha. I was wondering where it played in here.
Okay. I look at the last day of Hanukkah and good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's good to learn from you again. We missed you.
Take care.